right, everyone. So here we are with the first ever StockCharts Draft. This is an exciting idea we had, which is basically to do an NFL-style draft, take 8 of our top commentators, bring them together in one massive Zoom room of stock picking excellence, and see what sort of names they would select to put together a team of 2 stocks. So what we asked each of them to do is form their fake team, which they graciously did. They're joining us today. Here we're on Tuesday, April 19th, to look at the markets, take the S&P 100 as a universe, and then decide which of those stocks deserve to be in a team, a portfolio, if you will, of 2 stocks. What we're going to do over the next 6 months is look at the performance of those names, take the average of the performance of the 2 stocks that each team manager picks, and then we'll see how well we have made sense of these markets. Now, these are uncertain times, my 8 team owners, and thank you for joining here to make sense of things. I want to introduce everyone if I could. So in the order of picking, we have first off Larry Tentarelli from Blue Chip Daily. Second, we have Joe Rabil picking from the Washington Capitalists. Got to get your team name in there. Julius de Kempenaer, Double Dutch Delight, picking third. We have Jay Woods, Mr. Nicey Guy from Drive Wealth, joining us in New York. Grayson Roze from StockCharts is managing Rising Roses here in the hometown Seattle area for me. We have Mish Schneider of Team Market Gauge joining us as well. 7th pick is Erin Swenlin, Victoria's Secret from Decision Point. And then we have JC Parets with the turnaround pick, Spot 8, the All-Stars. Guys, how are we feeling about this market and having to pick stocks in this particular moment? I don't know if this is an easy time or a tough time. What do you think?
It's a fun time, that's for sure.
It's a time, right?
It's entertaining.
And it's interesting with how the markets are so crazy. I mean, at the end of the day, there's certainly some differentiation for stock picking, right? I mean, there are names that are working, there are names that are not. I'm excited to see which of you is the first one to bravely select a utility stock out of the 100 members of the S&P 500, seeing no real commit there from anyone. We'll see what happens. Shall we get started, guys?
Let's do it.
All right. So the way this is going to work, we're going to start with the first pick, Larry Tentarelli. We'll see which name he selects. So Larry, you're the manager of the Blue Chippers. You have a tough gig because you have to pick first of all of us, right? It all comes down to this. How are you feeling about that?
I like picking first. I like to have the cream of the crop.
All right. So you run a service called Blue Chip Daily. We're looking essentially at blue chip names. You are better equipped than anyone to make the first pick. So what's your first shot here?
So I'm going to get started with United Health, UNH, in the healthcare sector. And if I've got a few seconds to talk about it. So just by looking at the chart, so obviously I like uptrends, and UNH is in a pretty strong uptrend right now. It recently tested new highs, pulled back about 5%. It's trading over 4 rising moving averages, and it recently had a pretty big breakout over 500. So I think technically the stock is set up very well here. And also, if you want to talk about the market environment, what's been working so far this year has been more defensive sectors. I think the Fed is going to be successful in slowing down the economy. And we've seen healthcare stocks, consumer staples, and utilities outperform. And I think that United Health Group, as an insurance provider, I think that regardless of what happens in the economy, insurance is generally a fairly consistent sector industry. They are a global leader in the healthcare industry, $493 billion market cap, which makes them one of the largest healthcare companies in the world. And there's quite a few reasons that I made UNH my first round draft pick. So if we can take a look at the chart, now we'll see today is a little bit of a pullback day in the markets. They're down across the board. So we'll see some pullbacks on the chart. But if we take a look at the bigger picture on the chart, so UNH is trading in a longer term uptrend. It's trading above right now 3 rising moving averages. The 50, 100, and 200 day are all moving higher. It's testing below the 20-day today. No real concern overall with the general pullback day, but it's trading over 3 rising moving averages. UNH recently broke out to a new all-time high after earnings, and it's pulled back here with the market. But the chart itself overall is in a very strong uptrend. So we've got a market that's down year to date in the S&P 500. And the NASDAQ 100 UNH is positive for the year, tested new highs, nice technical pullback here on any further weakness in the markets. I'd like to see it hold over that 500 level. Right now, it's about 525 or so, but this is a very strong chart in a very strong sector.
It's not a bad one. Healthcare is an interesting one because it's sort of a sector I think a lot of people have been ignoring because it's sort of been, the value-y sectors, energy, ripping to the upside, materials ripping to the upside. It's technology all of a sudden rotates higher. Healthcare's kind of been in the middle, but some interesting charts that have emerged there.
Sure.
It's funny actually, Grayson, you and I did the Chart Madness special about a month ago, sort of a March Madness theme. And if I remember correctly, there was UNH coming up in that one as well, right?
It was. Yeah, a lot of us ended up with that at the end.
I think 2 of the 4 picked UNH as the top performer for that one as well. All right, decent pick, Larry. I like UNH. That's a strong start.
Thank you.
Joe Rabil, the Washington Capitalists. Thank you for bravely stepping into the second pick. We appreciate it. Where do we go? UNH is off the table. What's the second pick in the draft?
Okay, so probably I bet some of the if someone narrowed down their list to 16, I bet some guys don't even have this in the list is my guess, but who knows. I'm going to call Walmart.
Interesting.
And I'm going to take I'm going to take the defensive measure to another level. But more important to me is I just try and stay true to what I'm looking for, which is this fits into a lot of things that I look for in terms of low ADX. It's a low ADX breakout on a weekly chart. It's a power trend on the monthly chart. It's been doing nothing for about a year, and it looks like it's starting to emerge with new momentum on the daily chart. So I like multiple time frames, and it looks like things are starting to kick into gear. So that's kind of where I am with it. And, nothing fancy, but if it plays out like some of these, we've been kind of laughing about the utilities, but they've put on a pretty good move here since they broke out. My first pick is Walmart, WMT. If we look at the chart, I've got a split chart with a monthly chart on the left and a weekly chart on the right. Walmart has been a strong uptrending stock for years, but over the last year or so, it's worked sideways. But has maintained its long-term uptrend if you look at the monthly chart with the rising moving averages. What appeals to me is that after this sideways consolidation pattern, we have new emerging relative strength and we have new emerging momentum after a long period of sideways action. That's usually a pretty attractive time to look at a stock. It might pull back a little bit in the short term, but I think over the next 3-6 months, this could be a very attractive stock.
This is fascinating. It's a sign of the times that the first 2 picks are UNH and Walmart. out of all the juice we could be squeezing here, those are the names we're coming up with. It's hard to disagree, though. I mean, the S&P is, threatening, sort of at the lower end of the range here year to date, currently around 44.50. So interesting defensive feel to the draft so far. All right. Julius de Kempenaer, Double Dutch Delight. You're representing the home country well. And thanks for representing Holland on the draft here. What's going to be the third shot here?
Yeah, so we don't have any NFL nor football nor drafting. So I'm just shooting from the hip here. One of my stocks already got picked. That was Walmart. And UNH to me is like, this is all about players, right? So UNH is a quarterback at the end of his career. That is just like starting to roll over.
Like Tom Brady.
So my pick is actually KHC, Kraft Heinz.
Wow,
so
yes.
that's a stock that's not it's not breaking out to new all-time highs, but I think it's making a real nice big base, both in price and relative strength. So my first pick is KHC, Kraft Heinz Company. And the way I arrived at this pick and my other pick as well, basically, is I ran a scan. I use the RRGs as my weapon of choice, but throwing 100 symbols on an RRG is way too much. And as this is a contest for picking or getting absolute price performance, what I did a scan, and I looked for all the stocks in the S&P 100 that were above their 50 200-day moving average. It's about 10 weeks. And that was my, that narrowed down my universe. And then I went on the RRG and I went looking for tails that were at a nice RRG heading with nice long momentum tails behind it. And KHC actually came out as my #1 pick. And if you look at the chart, you will see why. You see that the RRG lines are well above 100. And you can see that the green RS ratio line just went through a little blip, a little dip, and now start to move up again. And that's what we like. We like it when both lines go up. And if you look at the price chart, you see that there is a serious resistance level at that previous peak, which was set in May of this year, around 42, 43. So when we're going to break that, I think the price will accelerate. That will definitely have a positive impact on relative strength, push these RRG lines higher, push KHC further into the leading quadrant, and make it one of the best picks in the draft.
Okay, a surprise pick. I have to say a surprise pick, but it's almost at new highs here. I mean, it's not that bad of a chart, to be honest with you.
When we first got the email from Gretchen that we were doing this, Holden and I, who is our youngest member of our team here, and we won't say where I fit in age-wise, but anyway, that was his pick. He said KHC. If you go back to March 23rd, when the email first came to now, it's too bad we didn't have this a couple of weeks ago.
Not bad, right? Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great pick. Yeah.
Go Holden at market gauge. And and Julius, I appreciate you've not done a draft before, but you immediately picked up on talking smack about the first two picks. So well, you get it. All right, you're done. You're an expert now. So you got the vibe. Jay Woods, your team is Mr. Nicey Guy, which is an epic team name. I appreciate the creativity. And well said. You've obviously had a fantastic career on the floor of the NYSE. It's been all defensive so far. Does the fourth pick continue that defensive feel or not?
No, we got to shake things up. I'm going for that beaten down superstar that's been on the injured reserve for a little while and is going to come back, and people are going to be like, oh my God, how do we forget about this guy? I am going with Biogen, BIIB. And now this is a technical show. I'm looking at the technicals. Yes, it's 45% off its highs, down 17% year to date. So we could be looking for a mean reversion. I mean, we're here to win a contest. And I could bore the audience with my Kraft, Heinz, Walmarts, and UNHs, which would be on my list and are on lists of portfolios that I highly and strongly back every single time I do these shows. But Biogen just broke a downtrend going from last June of 2021. It did not make a new low. It's basing a little bit and starting to break out. So if this was just to revert back to the mean or the 200-day moving average, that's a 24% upside. So I like the sector is starting to rebound. This is the leader in the sector. And I went with Biogen. BIIB is the symbol there. The biotech industry has been getting hurt dramatically over the last 18 to 24 months, but it's starting to show some signs of life. And Biogen had been in this ridiculously long downtrend going back from last June of 2021 to its current levels. And it just peaked its head above it. It retraced, did not make a new low, and it's hanging tough. So from a mean reversion play, just back to the 200-day moving average is about 20%. And I think, given our time horizon, this is going to be a star athlete that comes back to life and leads us to good things.
Wow. So 2 out of the first 4 in healthcare, right?
Well, Jay, I just have to say, I was on TD Ameritrade last week, and she
asked
Nicole,
me, yes,
biotech and medical devices, which of course seems to be a theme, but Biogen was the one I gave her along with Stryker. Did you see what Stryker did today?
I did not. Is it in the S&P 100? You can still pick it.
No, I couldn't. No, it's not. But I love your pick.
Did I steal it from you? Because that will make me very happy.
No.
Darn. All right.
There's some early angst here in the draft, which is interesting. Okay. Guns are blazing here with the last couple picks. I like this. So we've had 2 healthcare, a consumer staple stock, and 2 consumer staples, 2 healthcare. This is super defensive. I'm digging it. The third pick, Grayson Roze, the Rising Roses. You are representing the entire Pacific Northwest here, so there's a lot on your shoulders. Okay. Wow. If I was cheering for a team as commissioner, I can't, but I'd have to go local. So a lot riding on this pick. Where are we going with pick 5?
I appreciate that. I appreciate the local flavor there. Okay, so we are doing something super diverse here and picking another healthcare stock. So that's great. I'm going with Eli Lilly, LLY. So what I'm seeing on this chart, I mean, we're kind of thinking in this show, right, about a 6-month time frame. What I like on this chart is a couple of things. On the daily, we're seeing this really nice breakout that it's made not just on price, but also on price relative. So I personally like to compare whatever stock I'm looking at to VTI, which is the total US stock market. And so we've seen Eli Lilly break out of about a 9-month base within a nice uptrend, not just on price, but also against the total market, which is really nice. Purely from a trading perspective too, this has put in actually a bit of a pullback now right to the 20-day moving average, the rising 20-day on low volume. It's pulling back on the RSI too, just getting out of overbought territory. There's a lot to love on this chart on the daily. It's also got some really, really nice tailwinds to it. So it's got a lot of strength coming out of the healthcare sector overall, and then also out of the pharmaceuticals industry. Just a lot of tailwinds going on in this stock right now. Plus, when we zoom back out to the weekly, I'm using, for instance, the gallery view tool here on stock charts. When you pull up the weekly, the long-term weekly on LLY, it is a beautiful long-term uptrend from 2009 to now. It's just a steady climber. So for our draft, the way that I approached this from the start, in order to pick my 2 stocks, I took the S&P 100, I put all of those in a chart list in my account, and then I ranked that chart list using our scooter. That's our StockCharts technical rank. The value of the scooter is that it's the same criteria applied to everything in the list. So it spits out a number from 0 to 100. The strongest stocks are going to be up towards 100. The weakest stocks are going to be down towards 0. So when I rank that list, I was able to go from the top down to find some of the charts that I thought were setting up the best. The first one that I found, the one that really caught my eye, was Eli Lilly. The ticker is LLY. What I specifically liked about Eli Lilly, on the short term, the 1 minute to 1 minute chart, I like to look at 75 days of 1 minute data. And I specifically add the accumulation distribution and on balance volume indicators to that chart. Eli Lilly has been in a very, very strong uptrend, but it's also been showing lots of accumulation. There's been lots of buying pressure going on behind the scenes in this name. On the daily view, this again is a very, very strong chart, but has actually recently broken out to new highs. We had a bit of a trading range here from about August of last year until the recent months, until kind of March of this year. So we've seen this beautiful breakout here in Eli Lilly out of this consolidation range within a broader uptrend. It's also been heavily outperforming the market, and it's in a sector, the healthcare sector, that has been outperforming the market, and a pharmaceuticals industry group that's been outperforming the healthcare sector and the total market. So we've got sector strength in this name. We've got industry group strength in this name. We've got a stock that's outperforming the market. It's made a breakout. It's pulled back to the 20-day moving average. It's kind of bouncing off of that level, which is a great entry point from a trading perspective. And on top of all of that, on the weekly chart, if we really kind of zoom out to the bigger picture, we look at maybe a 10 or 15 year weekly chart. This is a long-term uptrend behind the scenes in LLY.
Wow, it's interesting. The chart of Eli Lilly reminds me of the chart of healthcare. Like a lot of these, the relative strength since November has really just rotated higher, right? And again, I feel like healthcare is one of those areas of the market that's really started to perform in some ways. But I feel like a lot of, I mean, at least I don't get a lot of questions about it. I'm hearing people focus more on sort of the barbells, but so far 3 of the 5 have been in healthcare. So interesting signals so far, you guys, from the draft. Mish, you have been patiently, selectively supporting other people's picks. Now you have to step on the pedestal on your own. Team Market Gauge, what's the first pick?
Well, it's so funny because I just, after listening to everybody, reversed my order of picks. So I'm going to do my first pick second and my second pick first, because it's completely different than what everybody has been talking about. And that is, drum roll, Facebook. Because Facebook has, it reports April 27th. So there's always the caveat, We like to generally wait till after earnings. And since it's just next week, it's not that far away.
Yeah.
It's gotten beat to a pulp. Obviously, Zuckerberg has been persona non gratis for quite some time. And I'm not going to even comment on whether or not that was well-deserved. But as a company, they still have a decent business model, but I'm particularly intrigued with the metaverse. And since I've been looking at stocks that aren't on our list, like Roblox and Square, that deal with the metaverse, or Mana, which is the Decentraland crypto, what is the closest that we can have that was on our list? And Facebook came up for me. So the chart's a little bit beat up right now, but it's actually clearing the 50-day moving average today. I think it could maybe have a surprise for earnings, in which case perhaps that will give us the boost it needs. But I figured I'd be a little bit controversial here. Although I will say that obviously the safety plays that everybody's mentioned thus far are not only on my list, but things that we have been long and doing very well with, other than commodities. It's probably the most contrarian play. We're looking out 6 months, and the propensity towards the utilities and the energy and the consumer staples in terms of the picks were there. So I thought, what could possibly fool everyone? And that's when I came up with the idea of Facebook. Now, we know that Facebook is still generating a lot of sales. It's still one of the best marketplaces, and it's still a social media platform that at least people in older generations continue to use over and over and over again. The problem with why the stock fell out of bed had a lot to do with publicity for Mark Zuckerberg, but also that they've made huge investments in things that haven't quite come to fruition yet, like the metaverse. But it is possible that we might see that actually turn around in the next 6 months. So on the chart itself, Facebook made a low when the whole market made a low back in March of this year, 2022, had a really nice bounce to over the 50-day moving average. And of course, along with the market, and ahead of earnings, it will report on April 27th. It has come back down. But if it does hold around these March lows or at around 185 and can work its way back up, say back over 200, it is possible that we can see a move. Do I think all-time highs? No, but it is possible that we can see a nice quick move back up to 300 or 350 over the next 6 months, because really basically what you would be saying is you're giving up on the incredible innovation of Zuckerberg and the Facebook team.
Boldly going for communication services and the first FANG stock to go, Meta Platforms. Interesting. Any jealousy from the first 5 picks? Was someone taking a little more offense here?
Okay, I'll be a little. If Julius made the comment of the guy at the end of his career on the first one, I would say Facebook is the injured athlete that just got carted off the field.
Yes.
and needs to go through a rehab process, I think. The thing is
6
what I
months
find
is a long runway, maybe, right?
What I find interesting is that since we're using a 6-month time frame, it to me, it narrowed the list. Like I would play this for a trading move, but 6 months just doesn't, I have a hard time believing it's going to be able to sustain that. I could see it making a trade, but so that's kind of what geared me in the direction I went.
Yeah, it's funny, and I should make it clear to everyone. I mean, we talk about a 6-month time frame. Most of us on this call have made a career out of helping people understand how to think about risk and manage stop losses, and so we're not really doing things justice by saying we're looking out 6 months and that's it. Obviously, we'd be tracking things along the way, and some of your picks may change dramatically in the next week, right? Who knows? But Mish, I'm impressed, boldly taking some offense here. We have an offensive feel to the draft all of a sudden. Thank you for that. Erin, Swenlin, you've been patient as well. You have pick number 7, which means you're actually going to pick twice pretty closely here. Are we going back to defense, or are we going to continue this rotation of more offensive, juicy stuff?
Well, I'm going to do like Mish did. I'm putting my second pick because I thought people would go for my pick pretty early, and nobody has. And I don't think that they're going to do it now between now and the other one. For me, I usually am looking for those reversals and new momentum, but I'll have to be honest. I think we're in this bear market environment. So I think with those defensive picks, a lot of people agree with me, but I tend to not go for those risky reversals when the market's just a little bit kind of soft and not looking good. So rather than go for the stands there, my team, Victoria's Secret, would like to draft Target, TGT, which is very interesting as far as consumer discretionary, because I've been talking trash about consumer discretionary and technology with my subscribers forever. So I'm sure that they're like, what? You've been telling us to stay away from that area. But the chart looked great. And it's really, in my mind, a lot like Costco and Walmart, which two other people picked. So I went with it first, and mainly because it was really on a good run. And I think it's going to continue to be on a good run. You have really great relative strength. You have a breakout. You have a reverse head and shoulders, it looks like has executed. It was pretty easy to pick this first one just based on relative strength and knowing what I do about consumer staples and how they've really been outperforming. Since I think it's a bear market, seemed like the best choice to make.
Now, to be clear, relatively low bar to be outperforming the consumer discretionary sector at the moment. Having said that, Target is one of those stocks that really had, it tested resistance a number of times and now put in a higher low. Earlier in the month of April, back above the 200-day. It sort of reminds me a little bit of the chart of Biogen, just starting to re-improve a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at a weekly chart, my price momentum oscillator, I pretty much go off of that. And the PMO on the weekly chart just had an upside crossover just above the zero line. This one looks like it's really set to outperform the next 6 months. So that was a fairly easy pick, really, but I'm surprised nobody picked it. The other one, like I said, I'm kind of shocked nobody's picked it yet, but maybe I'm being a little defensive on that side too.
The real question is whether JC, with 2 picks in a row, whether he can eat your lunch and take away your opportunity, but we'll see. JC, we'll see. you have your team name is the Fighting Fibonacci's. I love it. You have patiently waited for the turnaround pick. You've got 2 picks in a row, number 8 and 9, and that's it. You have one shot here to outperform. What are the 2 names you look for?
I've been a little quiet for once in my life. Throughout this,
where is JC, and can we talk to him?
Let me tell you something. Here we are. We got a bunch of technicians on here. And what do we do as technicians? We analyze trends. We recognize trends. The reason technical analysis works is because markets trend. What was the best performing sector in 2021? It was energy. What was the best performing sector in Q1 this year? It was energy. How many picks have technicians picked in the energy sector so far?
I know that's what my first pick was going to be. 0 from there. So now I'm like, no.
No,
it can happen, Captain. What is it?
You don't say my pick. All right, go
Warren
ahead.
Buffett. Warren Buffett just bought 11.2% of Occidental Petroleum, and he's got a sweetheart deal with warrants that me and Jay can't get, but Warren Buffett can get. I don't know how many warrants he's got, but I'm pretty sure it's not a little bit. It's probably a lot. So if it's good enough for Uncle Warren, it's good enough for me. Occidental Petroleum. This thing, I think year to date is up like twice as much as like the next best S&P 100.
I got it right here. It's up 110%. Chevron's the next, up 47.5%. So
let's go, baby.
You're picking one up in the stratosphere.
That is strength.
Let's go. There's multiple. Remember, this is like the Milky Way, so it goes on and on a long way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in Oxy. Buffett's been all over this one. Here at All-Star Charts, this has been a big winner for us. A lot of energy stocks have, but this one, much more than any of the other ones, been an absolute beast. It also trades warrants. It traded warrants prior, so it gives you a little extra juice. And now Warren Buffett is in the warrant. So Warren Buffett owns over 9% of the entire company on his own, and he also has warrants. We don't know how many warrants he has. We won't know until he files that a few years from now. Who knows? But my suspicion is it's probably not a little bit. It's probably a lot. So it's a beautiful, beautiful chart. One of the biggest winners. Energy was the best performing sector in 2021. And then what was the best performing sector in Q1 of this year? It was energy once again. So the trend is up. I like it, particularly if it's above the 2016 and 2018 lows, right? That former support. If we're above that, I think we could rip towards 88. That's where I think it's going. We've seen a lot of strength. Stick with the relative strength. Now, in a rising rate environment, the types of stocks that should do well are value-oriented areas, things like energy and industrials and materials and financials. And as well as a lot of the materials and energy have done in some areas of industrials, financials have really been weak. One area, speaking of Warren Buffett, that has been strong in the financials has been insurance. Again, if it's good enough for Uncle Warren, it's good enough for me. He's got a bunch of insurance exposure. I don't know how much Allstate he owns, but the way I learned it is that you're in good hands with Allstate. Insurance, when you look at financials in general, they've been struggling. Regional banks have been struggling, but insurance continues to do well. Look at the insurance index outperforming all the others. Look at the different components within insurance doing well. And I like the risk reward here in Allstate. Again, another relative strength winner making new all-time highs. What do we know about all-time highs? We know they are not a characteristic of a downtrend. You don't see a lot of new all-time highs in downtrends. So I like Allstate. From a risk management standpoint, if we're above those former highs from 2021, I really like it. In the case of this game, I like the relative strength. I think relative strength leads to more relative strength. So we're looking at energy, we're looking at insurance, two of the biggest leaders out there for sure. I think that continues.
There goes my next pick. Nicely done. That was my next pick.
Dropping mics.
All right. So we've got energy and finance. So what's fascinating to me, JC, is it took that to the 8th and 9th pick to do two sectors that, as you mentioned, arguably in a rising rate environment could be pretty well suited.
For the record, I was going to go with Luna coin, but you got me stuck in this S&P 500, S&P 100 like a bunch of boomers, like trading the Luna. Look at
this is why we have to put those blinders on, okay? Because to prevent JCs and Holdens and others going to some random things we don't want to put in the portfolio.
Well,
it's like
Luna,
a $40 billion market cap. It's bigger than some of the
Luna. Yeah, we bought a whole bunch of Luna. We're in Luna. Great pick. Yeah.
All right. Next draft, we do the S&P 100 and select coins. All right.
By the end of this contest, Luna will be in the S&P 100. You'll see.
Next year.
a bold prediction. We'll see how that plays out. All right.
Pick.
So I like the picks. We have energy, we have financials. Those sectors are now represented out of the first 8. So out of the first 8, we have 3 healthcare names, 1 financial, 1 energy, 2 staples, 1 consumer discretionary, 1 communication services. So for the record, as we continue on the second round, what we have not represented yet are technology, real estate, utilities, materials, industrials, some of the cyclicals in there and some defensive as well. Erin, Swenlin, you are now back on the clock. With Victoria's Secret. What's the second pick for your team?
All right. Well, I'm going energy. Winners keep on winning. I do not see crude oil moving lower. And I think that's going to pretty much, put any energy pick in the spotlight. But I have to say, I was looking also in materials, but I didn't like the ones that were offered me in the S&P 100. But most of my subscribers know I'm pretty heavy on materials right now, the chemicals and all of that. I had 1 or 2 on my list, but my number 1 pick I didn't do because I didn't see anybody going the energy side, and I thought I'd be safe, but I apparently wasn't completely safe. I decided to go with a winner who keeps on winning, and I think there's more upside potential, and that is Exxon Mobil. I know you talked Chevron. I know we've talked Oxy, which I really liked Oxy, but I opted to go with XOM. Really, this came about because I wanted an energy stock. There were only like 3 to pick from in the S&P 100. So I had to look at the chart and really make sure that I was picking the one that I liked. And Exxon Mobil seemed like a good choice. It's a big one, mega cap. We were seeing some great relative strength. We still are in the oil equipment and services. And Exxon has just been outperforming the market. And it's starting to outperform its group. So that makes me pretty happy. It's been on a nice rising trend. it's about getting up to overhead resistance, but I think oil is going to go higher. I just don't see it going lower. So it seemed like a pretty rational and smart pick, if I do say so myself.
Strength begets strength is what I was told earlier on in my career by Ralph Acampora. So far, certainly doing that with energy. I like the pick. We now have 2 energy stocks that are off, not a ton in the S&P 100. So choices are becoming more limited. Mish, Schneider, you now have your second pick for Team Market Gauge. What is it going to be?
Well, it's interesting because I had a runner-up was AIG, which goes with the insurance. And my other runner-up, which I decided to change as we've been talking, was Medtronics, which of course is also in the medical devices. But since that's all been covered, and we everybody knows that commodities have been hot. So I came up with something that hasn't quite been performing as well, but it's in the list and I thought was really interesting. And that's Linde Place, Lin, which is a German company, chemical company that deals with gas. And since we know that that's been an issue, and even though natural gas has taken quite the tumble today, which is so typical in commodities, most people don't realize that commodities and volatility are almost redundancy, but this is a much slower and steady type of company. Currently, it's been consolidating above its 200-day moving average. However, it's in a much better position on a weekly chart. It's above its 50-week. It's been in an uptrend, except for a little bit of a sell-off that it had really at the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, but it's underperformed a lot of these other sort of material companies, and I think it could make a good comeback. It's one of the few stocks that's trading over both moving averages. It has to do with energy and gas, and it's a German company called Linde Place, the symbol LIN. And right now, it actually had a spectacular move up off of the 200-day moving average. It's come off, obviously, with the market. And that's the thing to bear in mind, is that it's very rare to see any instrument go counter to the overall trend when there's a lot of selling pressure. However, this would be probably one of the first places that I would look to hold up. And if we can hold up, let's say over about 300, which would be my bottom line risk in this, and we have a market that can stabilize, there's no reason why in the next 6 months we can't see this company and this stock hit 350 to 400 or even higher than that, all depending on market conditions.
Interesting choice. Linde is a name that a lot of people don't talk about. It's one of the S&P 100 names. It's a big mega cap name, 160 billion ish, but not a name a lot of people traffic in. But you're right, an interesting play on the strength in commodities. Natural gas has been, has had an incredible run so far. Interesting pick. I like that choice. And the first materials name that we have on the board. Very, very nice. Grayson, that sets the stage for Rising Roses to have your second pick coming back. What's pick number 12 going to be?
Well, I'm going with something from the staples sector. I'm going with Costco. What I think is interesting about Costco is that from a pure technical standpoint, the charts look fantastic on this. The intraday chart, I use a 1 minute to 1 minute. So every single bar on the chart represents 1 minute. Over the last 75 days, this stock is showing a ton of accumulation. I love to see that. It's in a strong uptrend. It's recently made a really, really nice breakout. Again, it's outperforming the total market. It's just, there's a lot to love on this chart of Costco. And kind of similar to Eli Lilly, when you zoom out to the weekly, you just have a hell of a trend on the weekly. Costco has just been a very, very steady trender over the last 10, 15 years. So I love to see that. What's interesting to me, though, about Costco kind of getting out of the charts is that, yes, it is technically a staples, but it's also kind of straddling staples and discretionary a little bit more than a lot of the other staples in its group, right? Because if discretionary kind of picks back up, Costco also kind of fits that. I mean, you're going there to buy trampolines and rafts or whatever the hell you're buying in the middle of those Costco aisles. So I think Costco is an interesting play. Now, Costco is an interesting one because this is a consumer staples name. So it's getting the benefit of that sector strength that we're seeing right now. We're seeing, defense really kind of outperforming offense. And so consumer staples has been an incredibly strong group. But what I find really interesting about Costco is that, yes, this is a staples name. It's part of that consumer staples sector, but it also has a lot of kind of discretionary aspects to it as well. So this one kind of straddles the line between staples and discretionary. So if we do see the market pick back up in terms of growth and some of those more offensive corners of the market starting to outperform again, I think Costco is actually likely to continue this outperformance. On the charts, though, on the intraday chart, that's 1 minute to 1 minute action, that accumulation distribution line just continues to move higher. We're seeing a lot of accumulation in this name, a strong uptrend, a lot of buying pressure, a lot of bullish pressure behind the scenes. Down on the daily view, again, we're seeing a stock that's outperforming the market. It's in a sector that's outperforming the market. It is in a weaker industry group. So that was kind of one weaker point. Part of the reason that I put Costco behind Eli Lilly in my picks, but an incredibly strong uptrend out of Costco on the daily chart has recently consolidated a little bit. We made a breakout kind of the end of March, and we've been continuing to move higher off of that level here in Costco. And again, when we zoom out to the weekly chart, if we look at a longer term 15-year weekly chart, this is a long-term uptrend here in Costco. So a stock that has been going higher, trending higher for many years, and now on the daily chart and even down to the intraday chart, really setting up nicely a very strong name for the current markets.
Interesting pick as well, and coming off of all-time highs. And it's interesting that now 3 of the big box retailers off Walmart, Target, Costco, all going in the draft here out of 16 stocks.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Roze. That was my quarterback.
And you were doing it right, Julius. You never pick a quarterback first. You always pick the quarterback later. The running back is first.
That's the way to do it.
Okay, so and then Jay is going to go with my running back.
I was going to say, so we have one more person who can ruin your day, and that is Jay Woods, Mr. Nicey Guy. Where are we going with the second pick for you? First pick, by the way, was Biogen. What's number 2?
Well, we're staying in the energy space, and this company has a running back sounding name, Kinder Morgan. Imagine Kinder Morgan in the backfield for my Philadelphia Eagles. We like to look at things at multiple time frames and in sectors that are super strong. And what's stronger than the XOP and the XLE right now? Kinder Morgan is trading just under $20. Let's back this thing out. It is at 52-week highs, but are we at yearly highs? No, we're not even at pre-COVID highs. Once this thing catches on, it can go 10% to its next resistance level, and we have a nice gain for this contest. But if momentum does pick up in the name, like it has in many of these energy stocks, going back to 14, 15 levels where Kinder Morgan isn't even close, that would be a $30 to $45 price target. Now, I need this to happen quickly over the next 6 months, but the foundation is set. And if this thing can break out of the backfield, watch it run. The stock just reported earnings yesterday, so I wasn't as bold as Mish, who picked Facebook ahead of me in my last pick. Good luck to you, Mish. Earnings out next week. And from a technical point of view, that's a no-fly zone for me. But for my team, we have Biogen, mean reversion play, and then we're going with strength, a stock that is just broken out, reported earnings. So we avoided that possible pothole in the road. And if you back this out over time, go back 10 years, the XLE is about to make new highs back to 2014, 2015. Kinder Morgan has a lot of room to catch up. If it breaks 22, 10% from here, watch out. It could hit a nice pocket and a fast move to the high 20s, maybe even 30 in the time that, we'll be in full football season. So I can't wait to see how Kinder Morgan performs for the team. And I'm looking at as my stock that's going to really help me win this contest when it comes down to it.
Hold on, Dave. Is this total return or is this price appreciation?
Total return.
Oh, because now you got 5.5% juice on that KMI.
It's a decent yield there. And if you think that's exciting, you should check out some REITs, JC. All right. Some juicy yields happening there, but no one's picking them.
And I didn't even pick this for the yield because I didn't know that was a factor. I would have looked at some utilities a little bit more, but that's an added bonus. This is a win-win.
It's a good pick in one of the many energy stocks at or near all-time highs right about now, but one of the higher yielding ones, and a nice move higher, nice relative strength as well. Decent pick. Hard to argue the technical merits of that chart here in mid-April for sure. We have 3 picks less. Julius to Kempenaer, you are now back on the board. You picked a while ago with Kraft Heinz, little defensive play. What's the second pick to round out your team?
Yeah, I think this is going to be, it's not energy, it's not utilities, it's going to be an industrial stock. And I was looking, I actually had 2 on my list left. One was Costco, which just got stolen. And the other one is a stock which has a little bit of a history, because I made a big call on this one back in 2003 when I was working on the trading floor of an investment bank. And the stock is Caterpillar. Caterpillar,
I know how much you like Caterpillar.
Caterpillar actually makes the biggest trucks in the world.
Yep.
And at that time, because in 2003, I was the only technician on the floor and everybody was making fun and it was bumbo jumbo, blah, blah, blah. So when everybody left, I printed out on A3 an image of the biggest Caterpillar truck I could find, put it on the entrance of the trading floor and wrote on it with a big adding, you got to load up on stocks, put it in your Caterpillar truck. And that was a pretty successful call, and it's going to be successful again now. It's my second pick only because my real second pick was just stolen from me by Joe, because that was Walmart. I really like the chart of Walmart. I would love to have it in my team. It ticks the boxes as I just explained when I talked about KHC. It's above the 50-day moving average. It's traveling higher on the RRG. Ticks all the boxes, but hey, this is a draft, so couldn't do it anymore. So my third pick, second in real life, is Caterpillar. And I explained the story behind it, why I really like Caterpillar. But if we talk about the chart, you can see that it's a little bit more daring than KHC. CAT is not yet pushing to new all-time highs. There's a little bit more overhead resistance, although I have to say that we just pushed above this year's high, so we're now looking to challenge the high around 240 to 43 that was set in April 21. But what I really like is that Caterpillar actually went through a weak period of performance. It underperformed the S&P 500 from May onwards, started to stabilize at the end of 2021, a little hiccup, did it again in that was February, and now has put a bottom into place on the relative strength chart. That is pushing the RRG lines higher, and that is why Caterpillar now has a very nice rotation into the leading quadrant. And if I combine that with the recent break above the January high, and we're now on the way up to that high of May 2021, I think that this is a very good candidate to travel higher, especially once we can take out that 240, 243 area and push higher. Will definitely have a great impact on relative strength and push the price of Caterpillar to new highs.
It's a great chart. And it's another one that's just recently put in a higher low. It's rotated back above the moving averages. Relative strength has been steadily improving.
Of course.
It's an interesting name in the industrial sector. First industrial name that we've had picked in the competition then. All right. We are back down to the last 2 picks. Joe Rabil, you picked about an hour ago, I feel like, with Walmart. That is one of the joys and the frustrating parts about picking first or second is you have to wait a long time to get an opportunity to build out your team. Walmart was number 1. What's the second pick for you?
Well, first of all, I've got a little appeal I've got to make for this thing. My list, the list that was sent to me, didn't have Oxy or KMI in it. So
yeah, and here's what's funny. And Allstate is also not a member of the S&P 100. If you gave me the list of commentators and asked me which 2 would be most likely to break the rules, I would answer Jay Woods and JC Parets. and as Allstate, advertised, you guys have briefly gone outside the benchmark.
Well,
but as commissioner, I can allow that.
It was in my list.
It is. I thought Allstate for sure was in the S&P 500. I was their market maker for years, and I recall that being right next to the symbol. And then I'm going off of a list from StockCharts.com, the S&P 100 mega caps. So that is where I got my list. So if anyone has to be blamed. I think it's the people at StockCharts for that mega cap.
Our entire data team will be flogged, obviously, but to be clear, as commissioner, I declare that YouTube broke the rules, but I will allow it only because JC could have gone to Dogecoin or whatever, and I prevented that. So we do draw the line at a certain point.
Well,
so Joe,
just for the record,
out in the clear, totally fair
choice. I love that choice, Jay. I think that was a great.
Thank you.
It's a good job. You can't argue with the charts for sure. What's your second pick, Joe?
And Caterpillar's just taken. That was kind of the next one I was looking at. So I'm going with Bristol-Myers. I mean, look, I'm pretty simple the way I look at things. I am emerging relative strength, emerging momentum. That's what I try and find. Stocks that have been dormant and they're starting to kick into gear, and there's massive momentum. That first leg out of there had massive momentum associated with it. So I'm thinking in the course of 6 months that stock could have some really nice follow through from that. So this is a little bit different because it doesn't have the same long-term uptrend in place that we had in Walmart. But so it's a low ADX pattern. It's a stock that hasn't really done anything for a very long time, but is showing the same characteristics on the weekly chart, which is new emerging relative strength and new emerging ADX momentum characteristics. So same type of thing. After a big long run, we probably could get a little pullback, but I think it's the beginning of a new trend. And I think the potential is that this could play pretty well over the next 3 to 6 months.
Got it. So Bristol-Myers, another healthcare name coming off the board. This is the at this point the most well-represented sector with 4 out of the 16 stocks so far. Larry Tentarelli, you picked first. You boldly went with United Healthcare, starting this, completely changing the face of the draft, rotating towards healthcare. How do you finish off with the last pick here?
So I do have an energy pick. So JC did start it off with energy, but energy obviously has been the number one sector. So I'm going to go with something that's fairly consistent. I'm going to go with Exxon Mobil.
I picked that already. I'm sorry.
That is off the board, Larry. I was wondering if
mine think alike though.
Thank you for that.
That was a good pick.
Thank you very much.
I like that pick.
In the energy sector, just to be clear, you have a couple options left in the S&P 100. You have ConocoPhillips and you have Chevron, neither of which have been picked so far.
How about Halliburton?
Halliburton is outside, but I'm going to let you have it because I'm a generous commissioner.
Is it outside?
It is outside the S&P 100, but
all these cheaters.
However, I like the energy. The drafts. There are a couple things to assume with any draft. Is a couple people will try to bend the rules, and it's all about the commissioner being generous or not. I'm going to allow it, but if one of you win, I will put an asterisk next to it. However, Larry, go ahead.
All right, I am going to go with Halliburton. So I want to stay in the energy sector. Halliburton obviously is a very strong chart and a very strong sector, breaking out to new highs here on the chart. And I continue to think that the energy sector, even if the Fed gets the slowdown that they want, I think that the energy sector is set up pretty well, both on their fundamentals, but especially on the charts. And I think that that's going to be a nice counterbalance to my United Healthcare pick. $34 billion market cap, another very, very strong stock. So a couple things on the Halliburton chart that stand out to me. So Halliburton is a market leader year to date, along with the energy sector being a market leader, not only this year, but in 2021 as well. If we take a look at the Halliburton chart, we can see it's very similar to the United Healthcare chart, trading right now above 3 rising moving averages, just testing below the 20-day today. It also recently broke out to new multi-year highs at 42.60. It's pulled back about 10% or so with the market as the market's pulled back here. The energy sector is leading year to date. Halliburton is a leading stock in a leading sector year to date. So when I take a look at this chart and I see that even in a weaker market, Halliburton has broken out to new highs. The energy sector has broken out to new highs. And while there can always be some short-term volatility, as long as Halliburton holds over, let's call it the $33 to $35 level, then that uptrend remains firmly intact.
So interesting. We've got, as we finish now these 16 picks, and each of you have your team of 2 stocks. We have two sectors that were by far the most represented: energy and healthcare, with 4 picks each. 3 in consumer staples. So those out of the 11 sectors, those were by far the most represented. You had 1 each in a handful of other sectors. A couple completely ignored. Real estate, I'm not surprised, because there are only a couple REITs and probably names no one usually cares about either. Utilities, which in general have been a nice performer, but not really a ripe environment for stock pickers. But no tech, none of you stepping in and taking some sort of Microsoft, right? I mean, where's the
Tesla?
I had Google on the list.
I'm told this is a top sector.
I did have Google a little ways down the list, but it was basically there as protection in case all of my other picks got.
That's in communications. That's not in technology either.
No, I was going to say that's in communication services now. It's tech is Microsoft, Apple. None of these big names.
Basically, it's just
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and also, wasn't Tesla on the list too? I was surprised nobody picked Tesla. I mean, no Kathy Woods in this group, huh?
Tesla would have been my home run ball if negatives didn't count against us. I just would have taken Tesla.
So had we had different people in there, I'm sure Tesla could have gone, but we didn't. We didn't have Tesla. And out of all of the S&P sectors, the most represented in the S&P 100, I believe, is actually financials and technology. I think are the 2 most represented in the S&P 100.
That's because materials aren't big enough to be in there.
Materials is a rounding error, unfortunately. But
right, exactly. So
you only
Dave,
have a couple names.
I just assumed that the biggest 100 stocks were the S&P 100. I guess I assumed incorrectly. Shows you how often I look at the S&P 100.
So it's a tough universe. And that's why I'm giving some leeway. I even had to have the list in front of me because it's not a list. I look at the S&P regularly, as many of you guys do, and I think we sort of thought of it that way. And what I love about this, you guys, and thank you so much for doing this. I hope people got a really good sense of, given all of the levers you could pull, 100 odd names that you could be selecting. You gave a good layout of why you picked 2 particular names. So at this point, I would say thank you guys so much. May the best team win. We will track the performance of these over the next 6 months and continue to talk smack if you like. That is welcome via email. But we'll revisit these picks later in the year. Everyone listen: Mish Schneider, Julius Kempenaer, Larry Tentarelli, Joe Rabil, Jay Woods, JC Parets, Erin Swenlin, Grayson Roze. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. And we'll do this again sometime, can we?
Oh, yeah.
I would love it. Sure. I'm so competitive. I can't wait.
The gloves were off. And again, I want to thank a couple of you for kindly breaking the rules. I want to thank Julius Kempenaer in your first ever draft, just jumping right in and probably being the most aggressive, making fun of other picks. So well done. I think you get it. Next time you'll be a pro. And everyone, I'm Dave Keller here at Stock Charts. This was the Stock Charts Draft for 2022. Have a good one.
Hey, Grayson Roze here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.